With us in Westminster is Health Minister Hazel Blears. Minister, a rather depressing, but I have to say familiar picture was painted there. We talked previously about how we could improve the lot of patients, but what can you do to improve conditions for those staff? Because, of course, you can't deliver to the patients without bringing the staff along.
Well, I think that clip showed exactly what the pressures are on staff. And I think they said some really interesting things. They said the situation can't be changed overnight, that the ideas for modernising the service are the right ideas, but we do need to make sure that we put the money in, which we've done. And what they also said was it's about time that people started acknowledging the fantastic job they do in the overwhelming majority of cases. 1 million people are treated every 36 hours in the NHS, and the staff do a valiant job in doing that. In terms of accident and emergency care in particular, what we are doing, we put over £100 million in just very recently to get more A&E nurses so that we can stream people when they come into A&E. At the moment, people come in, they wait in one long queue, so if you've got a fairly minor injury, you're right at the bottom of the heap and you wait for far too long. When we introduce streaming, we'll get people dealt with. If they're serious, they need to see the consultant. If they're moderate, they can be dealt with by a nurse. And if they've got minor illnesses, which 40% of people coming into A&E are only very minor illnesses, they can perhaps be seen by GPs on the premises and be discharged very, very quickly. So it's about the extra nurses, taking the pressure off some of the nurses who are under tremendous pressure. But it's also about working in different ways.
When are we going to see these changes? Because the last time I went to casualty with my young son, I waited 3.5 hours to get his knee stitched up, and I'm sure that's a very familiar experience and a very depressing one when you're with a screaming child. But when are we going to see these changes?
It is indeed awful to have to wait in A&E, particularly with children, and that's why we've modernised a lot of A&E departments and had separate children's areas so that they're not waiting along with people on a Saturday night when we know what that can be like. And the changes are coming through. We've got a target now for 75% of people to wait no more than 4 hours. In fact, we've met that target and done better. 80% of people are now seen within 4 hours. But what we've got to do, once we bring the streaming in, then we want to get that waiting time down to about 75 minutes. And in Rochdale, for example, they've got a pilot doing just that. Their average waiting time is now down to 1 hour. So it can be done, but it means very different ways of working. And it also does mean extra resources. I entirely acknowledge that. And they're going through the system.
Can I just take you back to some of the people we heard about in that film? What message can you send to them? Because I mean, I know they said some positive things, but actually the overall message was of people at the end of their tether.
But the positive message that we can send to them is that the extra money is coming through, and they didn't have that for years and years and years, and therefore we've now got the wherewithal to do something about the problems that they're facing. We can also say that we value our NHS staff. We think they're doing a fantastic job and we want to support them. We're also introducing a lot more measures for family-friendly working, trying to give people childcare, trying to make being a nurse or being a doctor or a porter or a cleaner a worthwhile and satisfactory experience. People don't work in the health service to make a lot of money.
And
they
finally,
work because they care.
Will you put in more money if necessary?
Well, what we've said is that, you know, we want to put extra resources in so that we can make our health service meet the needs of all of the people of this country. It's our top priority. The Prime Minister's made it very clear that making the health service work for everyone is absolutely at the top of our political agenda.
Minister, thank you. Well, despite assurances by the Minister and Tony Blair that Labour will deliver on the NHS by the next election, is the health service now the government's Achilles heel? Unbelievably, perhaps in the context of the NHS debate, a new report, just released as we've been on air, says the government is undershooting on their public spending. However, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, outlining options available to the Chancellor ahead of the forthcoming budget, also says that taxes may have to rise by £7 billion, that's almost the equivalent of almost 3 pence on income tax, to fund the future plans for public spending, including the NHS. Well, our economics correspondent, Liam Halligan, has just been at the launch of that report and also here